Have you ever walked into a room full of people and still felt invisible? She did. Not once, every day. This is a story about a woman, not broken, not bitter, just alone. Not because she was unworthy, oh, but because life sometimes forgets to check in on the strongest people. Today I want to talk about her, a woman with no friends. But more importantly, what that really means. When we hear the phrase, a woman with no friends, most people jump straight to judgment. She must be the problem. She's probably difficult. Or the classic, something must be wrong with her. We've been conditioned to believe that if someone is alone, they must be lacking. But I want to challenge that idea today. Because what if I told you that having no friends doesn't mean you're broken? It might mean you're actually stronger than you think. You see, loneliness is not the same thing as weakness. There's a difference between being alone and being abandoned. And there's a difference between being overlooked and choosing peace over chaos. Sometimes a woman ends up alone not because she isn't good enough, but because she outgrew environments where she was never truly seen. Let's get honest. Some people walk away from the crowd not because they can't keep up, but because the crowd was going nowhere. She might have left toxic circles where loyalty was only required from her. She might have stopped texting first, stopped showing up for people who never showed up for her, and suddenly she's labeled difficult, cold, or distant. But here's the truth. Choosing solitude over betrayal is not a flaw. It's clarity. Sometimes that woman doesn't have friends because she finally realized she was the only one clapping for others and no one ever clapped for her. She was the listener, the comforter, the rescuer. But when she needed someone, silence. So what did she do? She leaned into her own strength, and not the flashy kind. The quiet day in, day out kind of strength that doesn't get attention, but keeps you standing when everything else falls apart. And here's the part we don't talk about enough. Being friendless doesn't mean friendless forever. It just means that in this moment, she's rebuilding. She's filtering. She's healing. And healing isn't pretty. Healing is messy. It's long nights of wondering if you're too much or not enough. It's replaying conversations in your head, wondering what you could have done differently. But healing also requires distance. And sometimes in that distance, people leave, or she walks away first. But walking away is an act of power. It's saying, I'd rather be alone in truth than surrounded in lies. And that takes guts. Now, I get it. We live in a world that measures connection by numbers, followers, likes, party invites, group chats. So when a woman stands alone, we assume she's lost something. But maybe, just maybe, she found herself. She doesn't talk about it. She doesn't post vague quotes online. She just shows up every day, quietly doing the work. Healing her past, protecting her peace, and staying out of circles that clap when she falls. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength wrapped in silence. And when people finally notice her absence, when they realize she's no longer available for shallow connections, they'll start to wonder what happened. What happened is, she stopped begging to belong in places she was only tolerated. She stopped lowering her standards for people who never reached for hers. She stopped being the backup plan in other people's stories and became the main character in her own. So if you've ever looked at a woman sitting alone and assumed she was sad, maybe think again. That woman might be walking the hardest road of all. The one where you choose yourself, even when it's lonely. Because solitude is not a punishment. Sometimes it's the first step toward becoming everything they said you'd never be. It's easy to look at someone and assume they're fine just because they smile, just because they show up, just because they don't fall apart in front of you. But you'd be surprised at the kind of silent battles people are fighting behind closed doors, especially a woman with no friends. Because when you don't have a support system, you don't get to break publicly. You don't get to unravel when life gets heavy. You hold it all together because, well, there's no one else who will. She wakes up every day with a weight on her chest, and no one ever notices. She pushes through meetings, errands, conversations, maybe even kids, with that same quiet strength, never letting it show that she's running on empty. There's no one to text when the anxiety creeps in at 2 a.m., no one to sit on the couch with when the grief hits out of nowhere. No random, just checking in, messages. Her phone doesn't light up unless it's a notification she didn't ask for or a reminder of something she has to do, alone. And still, she keeps going. There's a unique kind of pain in knowing that if you disappeared for a day or a week, most people wouldn't even notice. It's not that she's invisible. It's just that people stopped seeing her a long time ago. They got used to her strength, used to her giving, used to her showing up with a full heart and empty hands, never asking for anything in return. But the truth is, she needed someone. She always did. She just got tired of needing people who were never really there. You want to know what a silent battle looks like? It's blowing out birthday candles in an empty room. It's making dinner for one, night after night, wondering if it'll always be like this. It's scrolling past pictures of people laughing together and thinking, why not me? It's holding yourself through panic attacks, celebrating your own wins, mourning your own losses, because there's no circle, no tribe, no shoulder. She's learned to master the art of pretending. Pretending she's too busy for friendship. Pretending solitude is always peaceful. Pretending it doesn't sting when no one checks on her, when her name never makes the invite list, when people remember her only when they need something. But deep down, there's a voice that whispers, you matter too. And that voice is the only thing keeping her going some days. And let's be honest, some of the most put together people you know are fighting the loudest wars inside. They've just learned how to fight quietly. That woman you see who always looks polished, who never complains, who seems unbothered, she might be breaking a little more every day, and no one has ever asked, are you okay? And actually meant it. People assume she's strong, and she is. But strength without support doesn't feel empowering. It feels exhausting. Being the strong one is lonely when no one thinks to check on you. When no one remembers that you might need a friend, too. This woman doesn't need pity. She doesn't want handouts. She just wants to be seen. She wants to feel like her presence matters, like she's not just passing time in a world that keeps overlooking her. She's not asking for a crowd. Just one real connection would mean everything. So the next time you come across someone who seems withdrawn, distant, or hard to reach, pause before you judge. There might be a battle going on you know nothing about. One that's not loud. One that's not obvious. But one that's being fought every single day with courage most people will never understand. Because some of the hardest fights happen in silence. And the people fighting them, they're warriors in disguise. We live in a time where it's easier than ever to look connected. You can scroll through someone's feed and see pictures with perfect lighting, carefully worded captions, smiles in every frame. You might even see her there, a woman with no friends, surrounded by emojis, likes, heart reactions, and followers. And yet, behind all of it, she feels completely alone. Because social media is an illusion. It lets you feel close to people you haven't spoken to in years. It gives you the idea of connection without the substance of it. And for a woman who's already isolated, that illusion can sting even more. Every scroll becomes a reminder of what she doesn't have. It's a highlight reel of togetherness, of girls' nights, birthday trips, deep conversations captured in comments. She's not in any of it. Not because she doesn't care, but because no one ever really looked for her. She might post a story, hoping someone, anyone, will reply. A simple, "How are you?" would mean the world. But the silence after posting feels louder than saying nothing at all. Because the truth is, when people think they see you online, they stop checking on you in real life. They assume you're okay because your feed looks okay. They see a filtered moment and think, she must be fine. But no filter can show you what it feels like to eat dinner alone again. No perfectly angled photo can tell you how long it's been since she heard her own name said with warmth. And no caption can explain how tired she is of pretending that online hearts make up for real life absence. And here's where it cuts deep, because when you're friendless in the physical world, social media becomes this strange mirror. You see everyone else's world moving. Parties, calls, weekend plans, friend tags like, my person, ride or die, couldn't do life without her, and you start to wonder, am I really that easy to forget? What hurts even more is when she's the one who used to show up. She was the one commenting, encouraging, celebrating others. But that energy was never returned. Her kindness was consumed but never reciprocated. So eventually, she stopped posting. She stopped trying. She watched the engagement fade, and the people fade with it. And that's when the real truth hits. People often engage with what benefits them, not what connects them. They'll double tap your smile, but not call when you're crying. They'll repost your quotes, but never ask if you're okay. That disconnect is brutal. Especially when you've got so much love to give, but nowhere safe to place it. So she withdraws, not in anger, but in quiet resignation. She realizes this platform was never designed to hold her loneliness. It was designed to hide it. And the more you try to be seen through a screen, the more invisible you begin to feel. But despite all that, she's still here, still showing up for herself, still choosing honesty over appearance, because she's no longer interested in looking connected. She wants to be connected. She wants depth. She wants presence. And more than anything, she wants to know that someone, anyone, sees past the pictures and into the person, because a million likes will never fill the space of one real, consistent friend. The world has a funny way of rewarding noise. The louder you are, the more you're noticed. The more visible, the more validated. And in that constant rush for attention, the quiet ones often get left behind. That woman with no friends, she's one of them. Not because she doesn't have anything to offer, but because the world never really learned how to value people who don't demand to be seen. She doesn't show up to be the center of attention. She shows up to contribute. She listens more than she speaks. She observes the room, reads the energy, makes space for others. But in a culture that glorifies the spotlight, people mistake her presence for absence. They confuse stillness with insignificance. And that hurts more than most people will ever realize. See, she's the one who remembers birthdays even when no one remembers hers. She notices when someone's energy is off, even when no one notices that she's not okay. But because she's not loud about her needs, they go unmet. Because she doesn't push to be included, she gets left out. And because she doesn't beg for attention, people assume she doesn't need it. But let's be honest, every human being wants to be seen, wants to feel like they matter. And when you keep showing up for people who never acknowledge your presence, it chips away at something inside you. You start to question your place in the world. Not because you've changed, but because you've been unseen for so long, you wonder if you were ever visible at all. The hard truth is that many people are only drawn to what shines. They want charisma, charm, entertainment. They want big personalities and quick laughs. But this woman, she offers depth. She offers truth. She offers steadiness. And those things don't always show up on the surface. She's not going to compete for your attention. She won't perform for validation. That's not who she is. And honestly, she's tired of trying to prove her worth in a world that only claps for what's loud, flashy, and easily digestible. What she carries inside is quiet but powerful. It's lived experience. It's empathy. It's the kind of wisdom that only comes from heartbreak, healing, and having to learn how to survive alone. She's the kind of person who gives you space when you need it and shows up when no one else does. But because she's not always visible, people forget what she brings until it's gone. And that's what makes isolation feel so sharp for her. It's not that she doesn't have value. It's that her value is often ignored until someone else needs it. And once they've taken what they wanted, they move on, leaving her back where she started. Unseen, unheard, alone. But here's the thing, just because the world overlooks you doesn't mean you're any less worthy. Just because your phone doesn't ring doesn't mean your voice isn't valuable. Just because you aren't the one getting tagged, invited, or celebrated doesn't mean you're forgettable. The truth is, she was never invisible. People just weren't looking with the right eyes. There's a moment in every lonely season where something shifts. Not loudly, not all at once, but quietly, like a deep breath after too many days holding it in. That's the moment she stops waiting. She stops hoping for someone to show up and rescue her from the silence. She realizes no one's coming, not in the way she imagined. And so slowly, she becomes the person she's been waiting for. She becomes her own strength. At first, it's survival. You don't choose strength because it's noble. You choose it because it's necessary. She starts doing the things that used to feel impossible, fixing the broken things in her life, learning how to self-soothe when the panic rises, showing up to her own needs the way she always wished someone else would. No more waiting for the call, the message, the friend. She creates the stability she never had, and it's not glamorous. There's no applause for healing in private. No one's clapping while she rewires her self-worth in the quiet. It's waking up and choosing to care for herself on the days when she feels entirely forgotten. It's looking in the mirror and choosing not to believe the lie that she's unlovable just because she's alone. This woman, the one with no friends, she's not weak. She's not bitter. She's building something deeper than most people even realize. She's building inner peace. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on how many people text back. The kind of peace that isn't shaken by being left out of the group. She's learning to be okay in her own company. Not just tolerating it, embracing it. And that changes everything. Because once you realize you can survive without the validation, without the invites, without the people who only showed up when it was convenient for them, you start to walk differently. You speak differently. You stop shrinking to fit into rooms where your presence was only ever background noise. She starts to set boundaries, not to punish people, but to protect her own growth. She says no more often. She prioritizes peace over performance. And as she does, some people fall away. Some get uncomfortable with the new version of her. The one who doesn't overextend, doesn't chase, doesn't settle. That's okay. Because she's no longer willing to trade her peace for belonging. It's not that she doesn't want connection. She still hopes for that deep, genuine friendship one day. But now she knows she can wait. She can discern. She can trust herself not to settle for less just to avoid being alone. That's the power in becoming your own strength. It makes you unshakable in the face of loneliness. It gives you patience. It gives you perspective. She used to think strength looked like always being available for everyone else. Now she knows real strength is finally being available to herself. It's learning to ask, what do I need right now? And actually listening to the answer. And maybe the most beautiful part of this entire journey, she begins to like herself. Not the version other people wanted her to be. Not the one who played nice just to be accepted. She starts to fall in love with the quiet parts, the soft parts, the resilient parts. The parts no one clapped for, but kept her standing anyway. This woman didn't just survive the silence. She learned how to thrive in it. There comes a time when she stops waiting for her life to feel different and starts rewriting the narrative herself. Not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but because she finally realizes that the story others wrote for her, one of invisibility, of silence, of being too much or not enough, was never hers to carry in the first place. She sets the pen down on all that old pain and hit back up with a new intention to tell her truth her way. This isn't a rescue story. It's not about someone walking in and suddenly filling all the empty spaces in her life. It's about a woman who learned to sit with the silence long enough to hear her own voice again. And when she finally did, she didn't recognize it at first. It had been drowned out for so long by the noise of everyone else's expectations, by the weight of her own overthinking, by the loneliness that made her question her worth. But that voice, it was still there. And now it's clear. Now it's calm. Now it's calling her forward. She's no longer defined by the fact that she has no friends. That used to feel like a label, like a mark of shame. But now it's just a chapter, not the title, not the ending, just part of what shaped her into someone stronger, someone more intentional. She stopped measuring her value by how many people include her. She measures it by how deeply she knows herself, how fully she shows up even when no one else does. And here's the thing, she's not chasing connection anymore. She's inviting it. There's a difference. She's not bending herself to fit anymore. She's creating space where authenticity can actually breathe. She doesn't want a room full of people who only love the version of her that's convenient. She's holding out for the rare few who see her, really see her, and still stay. Because she knows now that presence matters more than popularity. That depth is louder than noise. That one honest conversation is worth more than 100 fake check-ins. She's not anti-people. She's just pro-peace. And she's not lonely because she lacks love. She's just no longer willing to beg for it. That clarity changes how she walks into rooms. She no longer scans the crowd, hoping to be chosen. She already chose herself. And in doing so, she gave herself permission to stop settling for surface-level anything. Surface-level friendships. Surface-level validation. Surface-level life. She's okay with being misunderstood. Okay with being left out of things that aren't meant for her. Because now, when people leave, she doesn't fall apart. She doesn't shrink. She doesn't twist herself into something more likable. She just keeps building the life she knows she deserves. Quietly, steadily, intentionally. This woman, the one who used to feel forgotten, is no longer waiting to be remembered. She's writing a new story, one rooted in truth, in self-worth, in unshakable identity. A story that doesn't begin with loneliness, but with clarity. Because she finally realized she was never asking for too much. She was just asking the wrong people,